Alaikum Arshad. Yeah, thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. على رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Irshad, this is the last session, as you have already mentioned, and there were some messages that I was trying to make throughout the last previous three sessions, and in keeping them in line with those, I will make my attempt to complete Surah Balad. We finished until ayat number 6 yesterday, so we'll start from the 7th. And at the end of it, inshallah, I will try to reinforce my message that I was trying to convey, and will make my efforts to incorporate through also going through these ayats as well as at the end of it, inshallah ta'ala. So thank you for this opportunity again, Ashad, and to all the viewers. I will start with verse number 7 of Surah Al-Balad. Does he think that no one saw him? Which is أَيَّحْسَبُ أَنْ لَمْ يَرَهُ أَحَدٌ. Sorry. So, according to the commentators and Mufassirin, obviously the word lam that is being used in this ayat kind of pushes the tense into the past, as if Allah is alluding that Quraysh had begun to believe that all the honors and riches of Mecca, they just had a natural, born right to it, without taking into consideration and without remembering that, this barren city was given safety um, and honor due to the dua of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, in some sense, the commentators believe that although Quraysh were not reflecting upon the fact that this is due to the dua of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, that this city, a barren city, has been given all the provisions, but they're not even reflecting upon their own state, that they have been giving these provisions when they haven't deserved them, when they were not entitled to it, and they have just taking that as a given that they have the right over all these riches and honor of Mecca, especially being a sacred city and Al Haram. So Allah is in a kind of in this dialogue, in this verse, alluding to that. Don't they know that Allah is watching them while they are, scheming and plotting against His own messenger, and how they acquire their wealth and how they are spending in scheming and plotting against His own messenger. And then, of course, the verse goes, the next ones, did we not give him eyes? alam najal lahu na'im. Here, immediately after this verse, that Allah is saying that don't they, uh, don't they think that anybody saw them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is immediately after saying, this ayat is being revealed, which alludes to that. Don't they even think that the one who can give them eyes can also see them? So this is the general opinion of the commentators, and I'm keeping it brief just to go through um, all the ayats today in this last session. And a tongue and two lips. Now, according to a hadith, sorry, I will just say it in Arabic as well. وَلِسَانٍ وَشَفَتَيْنِ. Uh, According to a hadith, the lips are a means by which you can control or somebody can control their tongue. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the lips so that one can control and silence their tongues at time when it is needed. And just a few verses ago, it was the same tongue used by the perpetrator who said that I have wasted wealth. So it is again a connection to that ayat and also a reminder and a warning that uh, Allah has given a tongue but with two lips, and these are the same lips which had uttered a statement like that. And it is the same person who was assuming before that no one can control him in the previous ayah. And then the ayat following that, that no one would see him. So it is the same person who's not using his lips. So basically, in my analysis, this is again refers to the person's ability of perception through which we all are having our experiences, and we are using these um, uh, organs, and we're using the faculties of perception, and we are completely oblivious to what is our purpose and what we ought to be doing with it. And shown him two ways. Now, I think وَهَدَيْنَهُ وَهَدَيْنَهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. Um, for the background of this ayat, I think that and shown him two ways. There is a hadith of the Prophet by commentators use that when Prophet ﷺ says, rush toward your Lord, O people, because certainly that which is little and enough is better than something plentiful but deceptive. People, there are only two paths, the path of the good and the path of the evil. So, what makes you love the path of evil? It's a question mark. The word hada means to guide someone, and by Allah saying that He has guided us to two paths, the majority opinion is, of course, on that it is a path of good and evil. And it is also illustrated in Surah Baqarah, where it says that there is no compulsion in the religion. Truly, the right way has become clearly distinct from error. So there is an illustration already, and it's what makes the most sense that two paths by two paths or two ways it refers to good and evil. But here is also another interpretation that can be taken that in Meccan um, Quran talks a lot about universal ethics and universal morality, i.e., that is something that is ingrained within us that we've been kind of discussing for the last few days. That it's inbuilt in us. It's how we are. It's how we see uh, certain concepts of moral concepts and moral principles. So it is not as though that we would have been heedful even in our makeup, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us, and in our fitra. We have this ability to discern, even if it didn't have to come through revelation. Um, the word Najat means a mountain here in this ayat, according to the commentators, that has no vegetation or trees and is a bare rock. And there's a clear path leading up. So the image given in this verse is of a man at the foot of that mountain with two paths ahead of him, one leading right and one leading on the left. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has clearly shown where each path leads. These two paths both lead up and both involve climbing, which means both require labor in ascension. This again reiterates and brings it back of the previous surah that man is certainly created in struggle, and that man will always prefer ease over difficulty. So that's something that ties in and supports, I mean, explains the previous surah, and it's coherent with that. I'm not going to go with the analysis, which I think would be better to leave it after after we've gone through uh, the tafsir of this. Yet he has not attempted the steep path. The word Aqaba is also a word used. Sorry, I will just read that in Arabic as well. Fala aqtahamal aqaba. So the word Aqaba is also a word used to refer to a path heading up to a mountain range, and is almost synonymous uh, with Najd, except that Aqaba refers to a very difficult climb, a path that is very difficult to climb. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown us two paths, one of which is not just Najat, but also Aqaba. And Iqtihama uh, refers to or means to just jump into something without even first checking, like deliberating the consequences, or rather intensity, doing something with intensity. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that after showing men the two paths, he chose not to commit himself to the hard path. And Iqtihama is just one act, of course, of throwing oneself into the intensity with that intensity. But Aqaba refers to multiple things involved, and obviously that we'll see as the surah progress. Uh, and La that has come, Fala. So the La that has come, it's according to the commentator, it is almost Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is complaining that why didn't he, when he was shown the two ways, why didn't he attempt the steep path, a difficult path? And that multiple things are being negated with that, which are obviously in the continuation from Surah Fajr, previous surah preceding this. And what will make you know what the steep path is? So here the question has been put, but the question and the way that it's been put is in the Quran. There is a usage of Vama Adraka and a usage of Vama Yudrika. So Adraka is used in the past tense and Yudrika is in present. And whenever a question has been asked in the past tense as to what would have been the clue to what the steep path is, information is then followed or follows. And now the response to that uh, begins. It is to free a slave. So this is, you know, characterizing a difficult, a steep path. Allah is now opening that up. It is to free a slave. The literal meaning of this verse, of course, is to rescue someone from slavery, which can be interpreted as some minority views have done, that it is to free someone from the slavery of the sins by repentance. But then again, it's not a majority view. In Quran, there are two types a word used for rescuing. One is ankatha, which refers to rescuing someone from some kind of danger like fire or from drowning or something, and paka, when trying to rescue someone from prison or slavery. Uh, the word rakaba literally means the back of the neck, and the imagery here is of a chain tied around the neck. In this, of course, in behind this word. So if the chain is pulled from the front, the person in chains would have to follow his master. But if the chain is pulled from the back, however, the slave is choked, and this depicts the pain of being a slave, of course. In Islamic literature, slavery is mentioned in two ways. First, a physical slavery, and secondly, a slavery of death, which is like a chokehold on someone. Sorry, I've missed the Arabic recitation. My apologies. To feed إطعام في يوم ذي مسغبة, to feed at a time of hunger. Now, in the previous surah, Surah Fajr, it depicted the selfish nature of people or the selfish attitude of the people. So, in this surah, the the actual climbing of the mountain uh, almost requires for someone to become selfless. So it's that selflessness that is being now highlighted here. And the word mazhaba means widespread hunger, not just hunger, but widespread hunger. So the previous surah, of course, was teaching that kufr leads to corruption in the cities. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is instructing us to oppose that corruption by becoming selfless and helping the weak and oppressed. So obviously that is in line with uh, these continuous ayats. An orphan relative, yatiman za makraba. Uh, Makraba means not only the orphan that is related to one, but also an orphan in close proximity, in neighborhood and community. And of course, Allah has encouraged the kind of treatment of orphans. And this is again a response to the verse in previous surah, which reprimands those that do not honor the orphans. So, of course, I mean, this surah has is a continuation of the previous surah. So, in the previous surah, um, uh, you know, what had happened, the events of Thamud and Pharaoh and others and Ad were discussed, and how man has been, being hateful. And in this surah, of course, a comparison and a contrast is being given and being offered, and a complaint is being made. But of course, that again is in line with um, the actual enmity that is building up against the messenger. So it is bringing all that and then reconstructing the whole a response to that surah, or to a needy person in distress. Now, al miskinan za matraba. So the word for matraba, though the word miskin comes from maskana, one of the ways it has been defined is as someone who barely has any life essentials. So when you meet someone when you meet, you wonder how they survive really. So it is kind of characterizing that people in need to that extent, who have no home, who have nothing, and they are just barely managing to survive. So Tarat means dust, and Matraba literally means clinging to the dust. Thus, this person is covered in and is overwhelmed by dust. Um, the fire. And to become one of those who urge one another to perseverance, patience, and compassion. ثم كان من الذين آمنوا وتواصوا بالصبر وتواصوا بالمرحمة. Now, so far, we have seen the moral traits that one would require are all character traits, i.e., of compassion and empathy. Now, here we are moving into more intellectual traits that one requires, which is mainly of wisdom, and through wisdom, being able to acquire other traits as are listed here. And to become one of those who urge one another to perseverance, patience, and compassion. Now, of course, there are problems in our society that we've been discussing, of course, in line with this, coming up to this surah that have always been there. And the previous surah, in fact, informed us that this happens because people have caused corruption by rebelling against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here, I will go slightly into this with the analysis that what is being said, that people have caused corruption by rebelling against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you were to look at the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in those commands, it is uh, an orderly state, it is a welfare state, it is the rights of human being, it is the dignity of human beings that Allah is promoting consistently. And of course, in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayat 177, which I recited today, uh, a day before yesterday, in the in in the honor of the pious, we can also see there that the insistence is on um, humanity and morality, in, when it comes to people's rights upon others and how to create and establish that state. And we can clearly see that when it's referring to those um, um, communities that had passed before and did not learn, and we haven't taken anything to learn from them. But obviously, the corruption that was caused was purely due to the lack of that kinds of institution within society to uphold human dignity and to look after other human beings. Because interestingly, pre-Islamically, in the period of Jahiliyyah, they also had certain code of conducts. They have certain ethical codes. They have certain qualities that were seen and deemed as moral qualities, so to speak, in Hamasa and Morawa, especially. Um, People kind of did generosity, but that was a generosity which emerged out of haughtiness and boastfulness about one's wealth, that he is displaying, an open kind of display of exhibition of wasting money, as which goes in line with it as well. And of course, there were other moral qualities of bravery, and there were moral qualities of patience as well. That they remained steadfast in a sense that when there were tribal conflicts, people would remain patient in times of like wars and battles. Uh, but those qualities, the source of those qualities, were not uh, divine moral principles, or what we take morality from, the source of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those were the moral qualities emerging out of personal self-reliance, almost like negating anything else, but just the personal strength. So the intention of those, or the motivations, or the sources and the foundation behind those qualities were not um, one which would be objective morality as what we see as in divine morality. That is only one objective divine morality, which the source of which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our beliefs, in our aqidas. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs us that after he came into Iman, now this person who is doing this and this and then become one of those. So he's describing him as when he comes into Iman, he is of those who believe and enjoins each other to perseverance and urge one another to compassion. This immediate switch to the plural means that when you become a person of Iman, you join the ranks of other believers. You're not in this struggle to help humanity alone, but rather you are now in a larger communal struggle of believers. So now you can see that from performing these acts of charity, now there is another stage, almost another level, where one has to be able to to assume a position within that, not just you're doing these acts, but you are doing it in in a kind of a holistic spirit, which of course moves away from just your moral traits of empathy into traits of wisdom, where you are concerned about society, you're concerned about community, and you are even in times of difficulty enjoying others to keep up with that. So the word wasiya is, of course, is a to leave a will and legacy, but tawassa is is referred here as advise, motivate, encourage, and counsel one another. And the word sabr captures the attribute of patience, commitment, consistency, and constancy. And of course, these are just some words which can capture the meaning, but obviously, sabr in itself, you know, it has such a depth, and it is such an instrumental concept and quality that is required in Islam, of course, but just to be a human being as well. The word Rama is mercy, but the word marhama that has been applied here in this verse is uh, is referred to extremely powerful mercy, which kind of gushes out in every direction. Uh, so basically, the allusion is that they encourage each other for the sake of universal mercy, mercy for mankind as a whole. Um, those who do this will be on the right hand side. Ulaika ashabul maimana. So this word memana refers to those on extreme right, like the level of attaining the soul of mutmain, and of course this is in line with Surah Fajr, that hence the people who are described did not do, and what they did not do, and if a person is on this path, Allah facilitates him to achieve and accomplish this this level of nafs, this level of mutmain, contentment within themselves. And of course, this is again proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But those who disbelieve in our revelations will be on the left hand side. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِنَا هُمْ أَصْحَابُ الْمَشَأَمَةِ. Um, the word mashama is extreme is a exact opposite of memana in the sense that it is the extreme lack and absence of all those qualities. And according to some Mufassirin and commentators, it means curse and something vile and disgusting. Um, and the fire will close in on them. Alayhim narun ma'asada. The word wasat means to seal something with another thing on top. So the imagery here is of fire from which there's no escape. So basically, when it has been put a lid on it, the fire becomes even more intensified inside, from where there is no escape. Uh, Ishad, can you tell me how much time we have so I can go through um, a bit of an analysis? 10 minutes? Okay. Okay. So, okay. Okay. So, in line with what I was taking the opportunity to describe before, because the imagery here in the Quran and what we are like the literal meaning when we're reading Quran and the translation even when we're doing. So when we're looking at these mountain, for example, of Najd and Aqaba, uh, I wanted to just relate it to some of the concepts that we discussed before. So a person who is able to take that steep path is very much in line with we were discussing about someone who has freed himself from uh, desires, physical desires, in a sense that he is able to ascend himself from things that makes him kind of uh, take the approach of self-interest to the extent that he or she is using themselves or others as a means. And I think this is something, like I said, is very ripe within the psychology of human being or the consciousness of human being, that we are constantly using each other. So if you wanted to bring this ayat to, to bring it closer to our lives, it then those concepts comes in, then fits that we basically needs to achieve that kind of freedom, i.e., not a freedom from desires in a very theoretical way, but we are always conscious of when we are using ourselves and when we are using other human beings as a means to our end. And I think this is a concept that needs pondering. This is some introspection that needs taking in, an examination that needs to be taken in by all of us and by ourselves. That in the most sorry, one second, in the most uh, simplest way to understand is being accountable for all our actions and be conscious about all our actions, that how we are using our self-interest in all encountering and actions and experiences that we have with us, with our community, and outside. So I think this is a difficult part to become free. This freedom is, of course, what we discussed yesterday, that it's not easily achievable. And here, uh, two other uh, two other concepts that we were discussing yesterday are suddenly becoming more clearer. That it's about justice. That when we are looking to get a higher portion of the utility of good, and and less portion of what is due to us in terms of like hard work and responsibility, and wishing others without not wishing others, but to try and get away from our suffering, whatever type it is, it's actually going on to others. And this is the whole society is based on implicitly on these two factors, that there is uh, proportions that have been disbalanced, and that's why there is no justice in the world. So the concept of justice comes in, the concept of freedom comes in, of course the concept of epistemology comes in. I'm very conscious that I use the word epistemology, which is might be a bit dense word, and it's so far a part of an academic world, but it's a word that has the most simplest of meaning. And I think for the youth, I think they are becoming acquainted with the ideas of epistemology. But I think it's one of the most important aspect of leading a good life, to be able to know how we know something, and what are the sources and what are the criteria through which we understand something. So again, here the person who is becoming free is the one who is not allowing personal subjective biases, discriminations, self-interest overshadow and distort his decisions, which should be directed toward justice. So the self, which I didn't take the opportunity of discussing here, that there are three parts of ourself. Of course, one is the anger part, and one is the desiring part, and one is of course the intellect akal part. The akal one is supposed to govern the other two, to keep harmony in life and balance in life. And of course, the perfection of that is in prudence and wisdom, and bravery from anger, and abstinence from uh, temperance from desires. So the two things that affect us are our desires and ego. So in any given situation, when we're experiencing, when we're encountering with somebody else, it's the desires and the egos. When they are invoked, we are unable to use our wisdom, and and those two are usually uh, relegated. So basically, epistemology in that sense is not allowing those two factors to impair your decision making process. When you're with people, what to say, what not to say, what to do, what not to do, it is very much of a process of deliberation. And this is all pure epistemology. I mean, if we want to become good human beings, it is equally the same if we want to become good surgeons. I mean, just by talking about, reading about surgeons, we cannot become surgeons. So we need to go and train ourselves. Similarly, any field, anybody wants to become good at anything, they have to go through that training. So to become a good human being and to be able to internalize these concepts, there is training, and Islam provides that in the process of tazib and talim, tazib, tarbiyat, and talim. Uh, but my point is that the concept of freedom is extremely important, that one does not use oneself and others. If this maxim we can apply in our lives, uh, the least we can achieve is the humility with which we will see the world outside us, and that worldview will in itself will be one step towards, remedy. So the concept of justice, concept of epistemology, and the concept of freedom has so far covered. When it comes to patience, which is, like I said, is a very key aspect in creative Islam, I would just like to um, lastly just share that the most beautiful quality of Prophet, peace be upon him, is described as hilm. It's from the word halim, which has come for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which literally means gentle and mild. But it's actually come, the word halim, as the dish that is cooked in South Asia, is also taken from this root word halim, which means there are many things involved in it. And this quality of Prophet, peace be upon him, the actual meaning of uh, hilm is actually being able to restrain anger in time of adversity, in time of when your nafs is being provoked, and at that time to control yourself fully. And this control was the most beautiful quality of Prophet, peace be upon him. And this control doesn't just come as abstaining, anger. It is a mixture, like Halim. It's a mixture of all traits coming together, like empathy, like kindness, like compassion, like justice, like truthfulness. So it is almost all making one kind of unified experience of a person, which is perfect in itself. And this is, according to many scholars before, and people who have kind of work, profound work on the quality of Helm, and including myself, I have extreme inclined view on this, that this Helm is actually uh, the spirit that is the mission of Islam and is the mission of the Prophet. So what Jahiliyyah wasn't some kind of ignorance, but it was the lack of this ability to control. So obviously, this control, when it's achieved and it's accomplished, uh, we can see that how it plays out in society, and this is something that, of course, we need to emulate. In terms of the ayats that to free a slave and to feed the hungry and to look after the distressed and to help somebody in difficulty when, for example, from slavery, when somebody has a loan or somebody's in difficulty. I think this insistence, and then certainly then moving on to uh, that, and those, and when they become of those who believe, so they believe in the set of goodness of morality from Allah, divine morality, and then they spread it out in the community. I think it alludes to very clearly to a kind of a welfare system, institutionalized welfare system. And we know that in no Muslim countries or no Muslim nations we see the reflection of this actual uh, system, uh, that that of course those who are pious would be able to spread. So I think if we were to think that this is the main part of Quran, the message of the Quran, that we should make that kind of society and we should make an egalitarian society in that sense, and when we see that there is complete lack of that, especially in our Muslim societies, then I wonder, and that is my question to the viewers as well, that I wonder what else is to be reflected in Quran, if not this introspection, examination, and then the message of absorbing and internalizing these concepts so that we can create that universal mercy in the world, which is for mankind, and of course our Prophet, peace be upon him, it is attributed to him that he was not sent except mercy for humanity. Ishad, I will end here, inshallah, and any questions, I'm here to take any questions if there are any. You usually have one or two, yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. I, yeah. Rashad, thank you, and thank you to Al-Noor for providing this opportunity. And I think that it really has been, a great experience for me going through the Quran. So I think I thank you even more for this opportunity because it kind of gave me also uh, other ways of looking at things, and it's been extremely beneficial for me. So I'm extremely thankful to you. Thank you.